Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Why Are We Like This, a Heartstopper podcast. I'm Ashley, she, her.
And I'm Sabrina, she, her. And today we are back to talk about Heartstopper Season 3, Episode 6, Body.
This is a good episode. There's some, not great stuff that happens in it, but I feel like overall...
Yeah, it's a great episode.
There's some really fun stuff in here.
Yeah, there's fun stuff, there's poignant stuff, and there's, some good memorable moments that I think are, classic Heartstopper.
Yes, and some good quotes to choose from as well.
Indeed.
Okay, so first off, I have to address something that I totally fucked up. I have no idea, you guys, where I got the 21st. I have gone back over, scene by scene. I've gone through my notes. I've looked at the comments that I left when I found that date. I cannot find where I found the 21st. But what I did find was the 17th. So I must have just written it down wrong. I don't know. But it's only, 4 days difference?
Yeah.
So it's still a week that he's been home before Christmas. Still too early, but yeah, I did have the wrong date. I also just wanted to say that we got some comments that Charlie made the card with their hands on it in art therapy with Susan.
Oh.
And I was like, yes, that is now canon.
That's absolutely where that happened.
Yes. And then the opening scene where they're talking about the presents and then they go through what they want. And I had said that Charlie was already not being honest with Tori.
Yeah.
Our British listeners were like, well, he's just being dry humor sarcasm. And I was like, yeah, that went right over my head. So
yeah, I'm not British enough to parse that one.
Same. But I was like, that does make sense.
Yeah.
And then something we didn't talk about that I noticed just when I was rewatching it 800 times trying to find the 21st was that we didn't really talk about the stark difference between Charlie's house on Christmas and Nick's house on Christmas, just the environment, Jane's house is still very orderly and calm, and Nick's is chaotic, and there's Christmas music playing loud and everybody's running around, and I don't know.
Feels a lot more like Christmas than Jane's house, I gotta
say. Definitely. There was something I also wrote down that you mentioned something at the end of the recording, but I don't remember what it was that you wanted to mention. Was it an outfit?
Oh, yes, it was. It was those black cherry leggings that I was obsessed with. Yeah, Tori's black cherry leggings. Yeah, those are really great. And they're so Tori, and they're just a moment. And they didn't get their time in the sun.
Agreed. That's all of my pre-episode notes that I wrote down.
Excellent.
We start this episode off in Jeff's office. And he says, it's been 4 months since you left Impatient. We got our little April doodle. And Charlie's like, yeah, I should bake a cake or something. And Jeff is like, okay, well, I know you're being sarcastic, but that's actually a lovely idea.
Yeah.
And Charlie just immediately pops back with, well, too bad I was being sarcastic then. But then we really get into the seriousness of the scene. And he's like, but it would be nice to mark the occasion because you've come a long way. Don't you agree? And Charlie's like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, all right, let's try something. I want you to name 3 bits of progress that you've made over these last 4 months. And Charlie's not having it. He scoffs. And Jeff's like, come on, just humor me. And so then when Charlie's still pretty hesitant, Jeff's like, okay, how about I start? You settled back in at school in January. Get our first flashback.
Yeah.
We see his inform with Mr. Farouk, and Farouk is like, I'm here if you need any extra support, whatever you need. And he goes to leave, and Mr. Farouk's like, not without my fist bump, my guy. I love that this has become a thing between them.
Yeah, me too. One of the sweet adults on Heartstopper that I'm like, why were these people not in my life?
I know, right? So then we go to the locker rooms, and Nick and Charlie are entering very slowly, but everyone cheers, and Otis and Christian and Cy come over and give him a hug, and some other guy gives him a hug.
Yeah, who's that guy?
I don't know. I was like, do you think that's Kieran? And he's like, I gotta hug him because he fills in for me when I go to the dentist. But Nick looks so proud that everybody is welcoming him back so lovingly.
Yeah.
Then we cut out to rugby practice, and Charlie's looking worse for the wear. And Coach Thing comes over and tells him to take a 5-minute break and not to push himself too hard. And she like pats him, and Nick is walking up too. And when she walks by Nick, she pats him too. And I'm like, you know, she's been seeing the difference in him, and she's probably spent some extra one-on-one time with him as well that we haven't seen. And I just love her, and I love how well she takes care of the kids.
Yeah, and I think it's nice that we have another moment acknowledging what Nick's going through and like the enormity of what he's handling as a teenager. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And yeah, being in a team environment where your boyfriend is usually there is so much emotional pressure.
Yeah. And he walks up and he checks on Charlie. And then we kind of like go back into the present. And Charlie's like, yeah, I mean, I had a lot of help. I still relapsed 2 weeks later. Jeff just kind of shrugs at him. That's the first indication that they have beat this horse to death.
Yeah. Jeff is my AI therapist telling me the same thing for the 5,000th time about the same thing. Yes. And I'm like, I hear you. I just had to type it out.
And Charlie's like, I know it happens. It's normal. We've talked about it. And Jeff's like, but you've continued to criticize yourself about it. Does it weigh on you? And then we cut to the spring kitchen, and Nick is saying, like, can you just eat half? And Charlie throws his fork down, and he says, I said I can't. And Nick says, you're not even trying. And then he picks up the utensil like he's gonna feed it to him, which makes me cringe so hard.
Classic Jane move from Nick.
Charlie's like, you're making me feel like shit. If you're gonna sit there and make me feel insane, just fuck off. And Nick leaves. And you could see the instant regret in Charlie's face, and like the anxiety bubble creeps in until it consumes the whole screen. And then we get this like flash, and then we're in Charlie's room. He's holding himself, and Nick comes running in, and Tori's right behind him, and they run into each other's arms. Nick says, I'm sorry. Tori's like at the door sniffling, and Charlie says, sorry, I didn't mean to. I knew we were going to get this scene. I did not expect there to be dialogue. I just figured it would be a quick flash, and the way that it was like a slap in the face. Watching it for the first time, like, no.
Yeah, it was a real, like, you could feel the vice grip around your lungs even. Yes. I was like, oh.
And the lighting.
I was just going to say, and the lighting and stuff. Yeah.
Alice actually posted about this on Tumblr like 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
They reshared one of somebody's like gift sets, you know, that they do on Tumblr. And so they wrote some notes about it. If anyone wants some fun trivia about this scene, I wrote it days before we shot it. Originally in the script, it was pure improv, but in the end, we wanted to give the guys some script to work with. The original plan was for the scene to be silent and just have music playing over them. Then their performance was so good, and we were so compelled by Nick and Charlie arguing, parentheses, shock, horror, that in the edit, we were actually like, we want to hear this.
I feel like we hear that a lot about the cast just being like so
good.
And the work they're doing being so natural and so like usable, you know? Yeah. And you only get that from real chemistry.
Yeah. And good acting. Like, you're not going to get that from a mediocre actor.
Yeah. Again, the casting person for this show deserves, like, I don't know, Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, they did win some awards for season 1, but I don't think they won any for season 2 for the cast. In season 1, they talked about, I remember interviews with Joe and Kit about, like, they would not let them improv, like, you had to stick to the script. Like that scene when Nick is talking to Tara after he just come out to her, and he's like, do you think that maybe you could be bi, or are you really fully gay? And she's like, oh no, you're part of the reason why I realized that I'm gay. And he says like, oh, well, happy to help or whatever. That he originally had said like, ooh, ouch. Okay, well, happy to help. And they were like, no, you got to stick to the script. But then in season 2, they were like, let's just have you guys ad-lib stuff. Let's just have it. And I think that they like really proved themselves in season 1 to where when we came back for seasons 2 and 3, they trusted them a lot more to like know the character and know what to do. So I just love that development through the the series, getting to see them like do more and more ad lib and improv.
Yeah. And it's great to know that, like, I don't know. It's great to know that behind the scenes, they're all progressing as artists too. Like it makes the whole thing feel like not only a great show, but also like when I read about the show, like kind of a summer camp happening. And I love it.
Also, what the fuck is this food? I wouldn't want to eat it either.
Well, listen, they're in Britain.
I know, like I can see the peas and that makes sense, but the rest of it also, I'm like, what? I need Adam to tell me what this meal is.
Yeah, no, it looks like one of those cartoon meals like on Doug or something.
Yes, it does. Oh my God. So then we go back to Jeff and he says, self-harm relapses are normal. They don't negate any progress and Charlie cuts him off. He's like, I know. Jeff's like, you're 3 months clean. That's our second bit of progress, isn't it? I kind of hate that they use the word clean.
Yeah, so did I. I hated it too.
It's like inherently related to dirty and it just feels degrading.
Yeah, I always hate when that's used either about food, about like, I mean, people use it about STIs, people use it about addiction, people use it about, and it's like, no, we don't have to do all that. But the sentiment is there. I think Jeff has probably a very popular TikTok where he gives out advice, but he got eaten up on the comments for that one.
Yes, yeah. Gen Z put him in his place on that one. Also, before we get too far, I do think that Nick, he's not as ignorant about stuff in this area as Jane is. I think he was just desperate and like trying so hard to help that he was crossing some boundaries there.
Also, he should not be expected to have infinite patience and maturity.
So true. And it's also not his like responsibility or job to be the one sitting there trying to make sure Charlie eats his food. Like you're a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah. 100%.
I think he definitely learned from that experience moving forward for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's one of those mistakes that you have to like make because you want to believe that you would be able to help and you want to believe that like you can do everything for somebody. But spoiler alert, you find out you can't.
Yeah. Yep. So Charlie's like, okay, fine. Happy? And Jeff says, yeah, delighted. I love him so much. Eddie Marson plays him so well too.
Yeah, totally.
So then he says, so progress number 3, let's hear it. I've done the first 2 for you. And Charlie's like, me and Nick. And then he gets embarrassed and he's like, I don't know. And Jeff's like, no, that's great. So you feel like you and Nick have progressed in your relationship. And Charlie's like, yeah, since the night of the argument, I guess we feel a lot closer. I mean, he's seen me at my absolute rock bottom and hasn't run away screaming. And then he says, now I feel like I'm in relationship therapy or something. And Jeff says, we can save that until you're 10 years in and having marital problems. Oof, Jeff.
Also, let me say 2 things. One, yes, in a healthy relationship, conflict, in fact, makes you closer.
Yes.
Shocking, I know. Shocking to my exes, I know. 2, you don't need to wait 10 years to go into relationship therapy. If you feel you have something to discuss about your relationship, feel free to go over and book a session with Jeff whenever. I think that was just a joke. But Jeff, let's not send the wrong message, okay? Yeah. I know the NHS has waiting times, but let's not send the wrong
message. So then he says, but I expect your progress has allowed you to deepen your connection with him. If your intrusive thoughts have lessened, you've got more energy to give to your relationship. And then we get this montage, this makeout montage.
Energy.
Yeah. And we get like a post-school makeout in Nick's room, and then Charlie kissing Nick's neck in Charlie's bed, and then making out in Nick's bed. And these like 3 quick cuts really reminded me of the Really Good Mates flashback that we get of just like the 3 quick cuts of them kissing.
Really Good Mates.
Yeah. And then Charlie's like blushing and cheesing, and he's like, yeah, more energy. And I feel like Jeff, his little like nod is like very like, I see where this is going.
Teenage boys will be teenage boys.
Yes, they will. And Charlie's like, I still feel like I've got a long way to go. I still have a lot of bad days. And Jeff's like, well, yeah, you've experienced trauma. And Charlie says, but I don't want to be defined by the fact that I was bullied at 14 and had one toxic ex-boyfriend. And Jeff says,
same.
But trauma doesn't define you. It also doesn't vanish in 5 minutes, but give yourself some grace. And I think that that's really important. And it's super hard to remember when you're in the middle of it that the trauma doesn't define you, because in your brain, it's a huge pillar, and you probably did change from it, and so it's just, that's a big one that's hard to remember.
A tough thing with feelings is that you can be conscious of like what they are and where they come from, and you can be conscious of like where they're gonna go, but you have to sit with them in the meantime.
Yeah.
And trauma is one of the hardest things to deal with, because you're like, all right, well, I guess I just feel like garbage all the time right now about this, even though I know it's not my fault and I know I'll get better. But like, you have to give yourself grace to deal with it, because it's like any other kind of pain. Like if you were injured or something, you just have to like wait for it to heal, and it's going to hurt in the meantime. I don't know. Jeff is just like what I wish every kid had advice wise.
Yeah. And me too now.
Yeah, truly. But you know what? Could have saved me a lot of trouble if I had known that stuff.
So true. And he says, and you've got people around you who love you and care for you, so enjoy them. And Charlie says, do you practice your motivational pep talks, or do they just come to you in the moment? And Jeff's like, they just come to me in the moment. I'm just a talented person. And he says that he's out of time, and he tells Charlie to enjoy his birthday and party hard, because 16 is one of the big ones. And I think Charlie takes the party hard into his heart and is like, okay, yes, will do.
You don't have to tell me twice.
Yeah. Oh my God, this title card is one of my favorites. The way that it's like a mirror, it's like looking in the mirror at itself. And then just the content of this episode, it's so good. I didn't notice it the first time I watched it. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, it's a mirror.
Yeah, usually for me, especially with the show, there's so many little details, and it takes me having like seen sort of what's happening in the scene, so I don't have to process that to like go and pick through. But yeah, this is such a great one. It's so perfect. And the whole episode sort of resonates with it for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. So then we cut over to Lambert. I love this like tiny little background conversation that's happening where Naomi's like, how long have you been working on this? And Felix is like, none of your business. And then the teacher, who they list in the captions as tutor. I'm like, that's interesting. She's definitely like
interesting.
A resident teacher at that place. And
poor art department's getting bumped down.
Yeah. And Elle, she walks over and says, Elle, wow, this captures your spirit as well as your likeness. And Felix is like, Miss, how come you never compliment my work like that? And the teacher's like, Felix, I'd compliment your work if you'd actually show me a completed piece. And then Naomi's like, she has a point. I was just on your ass about this 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, same. I should finish some writing.
And then she's like, Elle, I wanted to talk to you about something. We've had contact from a local radio station about you. They heard about your social media blowing up and they want to interview you. Local young artist achieves internet fame. Elle's like flattered. And the teacher's like, now it's completely up to you. I want you to decide whether it's something that you feel comfortable with, and I'll email you the details.
And I could already feel it. I was like, no.
Yeah. I love the ribbing that she gets from Naomi. Being like, oh, that's so exciting. You're literally famous. She's like, I'm not famous. She's like, you are. She's like, I'm not. Finish your painting. Then we go back to Truum. And we hear Headmaster Barnes welcoming everyone back from the Easter holidays. Nick is like walking down the hallway. The headmaster says that spring is in full bloom. This is like I need to know if they like is this real? Do they make like silly little announcements like this in the UK? Because it's so like poetic. He says, spring is in full bloom while summer peeps out of the horizon with all of its endless possibilities. So knuckle down, work hard, and don't forget to have some fun. And I'm like, that would never happen in an American school. They're like, sit down and shut up.
Sound very similar to American prisons.
Yes. And then we hear the drums in the distance, and Nick slows and like smiles. And he's like overwhelmed for a second, like hearing Charlie doing like what he loves again. And he looks through the window at Charlie and he's like practicing on the drums. And he goes in and he says, "Happy birthday." And he throws his bag on the ground. He's like, "Happy birthday." And he picks him up and spins him around. Charlie's like, "Are you ever going to get tired of doing that?" And he's like, "Absolutely not." "But I did get you a present." And he pulls out an envelope and he like slaps it on Charlie's chest. And my notes are now in all caps, just like one of my all-time favorite moments ever in season 2 in the locker rooms after Charlie gives him his anniversary candy bar and he slaps it on him and says, "Now, how did you know this is my favorite chocolate bar?"
It's so good. It's so good. It's like it's part of what makes the show feel like such a cohesive whole and so rewarding to watch.
Yes. And anybody who listened to our season 2 coverage knows how much that scene means to me. That is one of my favorite scenes. I love it so much. So Charlie opens the envelope and it is giant tickets to see Jack Maddox. And I'm like, what in the Canva has Nick Nelson been up to?
Yeah, Willy Wonka.
Yeah. And he's like, it's that famous Instagram historian that you like, Jack Maddox. He's doing a book signing on Saturday, and I thought that we could go after the sleepover. Charlie's like, "Wait, we get to meet him?" He's like, "Yeah." And he just pounces on him. He's like, "Thank you, I love you so much." And Nick's like, "Well, clearly not as much as Jack Maddox, but I'll take it." This is a little different than the comics because it is Tao that's getting him the tickets in the comics, and this is like the beginning of jealous Nick. And he's a lot more jealous in the comic than he is
definitely
in this. And I like kind of wish that they would have played into the jealousy a little bit more than they do in the show, but I'll take it.
They said we cannot have our Golden Boy show flaws. We're not going to do that.
Yeah. We do get like some side eye and stuff later, but
yeah.
Also, this guest comic that this comes from was written by Ren James, who is the like story editor for the scripts.
Oh wow!
So that's like, they pulled this into the show because of their involvement, which is fun.
That is fun.
Also, Jonathan Bailey was like, "I love Heartstopper. If there's ever a part I could play, let me know." And they were like, "Oh, we've got it." And perfect to play this part.
Yeah, totally. Dreamy.
So good. And Charlie's like, "Do I also get a birthday kiss?" And Nick's like, "Yeah." And in this moment, Nick looks shy, like it's their first week of dating all over again. And he kisses Charlie and like backs him up into the wall. And there's like sparkles and flowers in the shade of the pink daydream bubbles, which I love. Yeah. And Charlie like flips them over. So Nick's up against the wall and then he pulls back and he's like, we should probably stop. And Nick's like, yeah. Not at school. And he's like, "Yeah, it's almost time for form, but we're having a sleepover on Saturday." And Nick's like, "Yeah." And he's like totally flustered. Charlie just leaves him. They're going to the same place, but he's like, "No, I need a minute to like cool down for a second before I go out in the hallways."
Time for those breathing exercises I learned.
Yes. And then we cut to Charlie's bedroom and Isaac and Tao are on the bed. Isaac's like flipping through a book. Tao's eating chips. And Charlie's like, "It happened again." Isaac's like, immediately. Isaac is so here for the tea. He's like, "When?" He knows what he's talking about already. "When?" Charlie's like, "Yesterday in form." And Tao's like, "What happened?" He's like, "Well, me and Nick were making out and it got really intense really quickly. And then it stopped and it was kind of awkward and overwhelming." And Tao's like, "Do you want to say it or should I say it?" Yeah. And Isaac's like, "No, I think he's about worked it out for himself." And Tao's like, "Charlie, have you ever considered the idea that you and Nick are ready to take things further?" And Charlie just like, the thinking, spinning bubble is happening. He's like, Isaac's like, "He's talking about having sex." And Charlie's like, "Yeah, I know." And it's obvious that we both want to. It's not like we have done nothing. I mean, it's all been over the clothes, but sometimes when we're making out, we... Tao's like, no, please spare us the details. And Isaac's like, "What? No, I want all the details."
I am usually everyone in this scene.
So true. It like really depends on my mood.
Yeah, 100%.
I love Isaac being like, I don't want to be involved with anyone, but I do want to know about everyone's inner workings in their relationship, please. This
Yes,
is like
100%.
a live novel being written in front of me, and I want all of the words.
That is me in corporate America. I want to know all the details, but please do not involve me. I am a conscientious objector, but man, is it interesting. Tell me more.
So Charlie's like, this is when his like real actual spiral starts to happen. He says, I'm so scared that he's just not ready to do anything more. And I'm scared that I'm not going to know what I'm doing. And I'm scared that he's going to take one look at me. And he turns and looks in the mirror and kind of freezes for a second. He's looking really anxious. And Tal just can't help it. He's like, well, when me and Elle first started having sex, it was in the spur of the moment, an outburst of fiery passion in the light of the New Year's fireworks.
Sex expert and poet. Tal.
Isaac instantly is like, eye roll, eye roll, eye roll. He's like, yes, Tal, we have all heard about this. We've heard this story before. And he's like, why are you interested in Charlie's sex life and not mine? And I'm like, well, it's one thing to hear the story for the first time. It's another thing to hear it for the 27th time. Down.
Yeah. We're not here for you to play the hits. I was here for some new information.
Yeah.
What a juice.
Yeah. And Charlie's like over it at that point. He's like, you know what? Get out. I need to change. I don't want to talk about this anymore. And I love their protests of Tal being like, what? But we're talking about sexy time. Let's talk about sexy time. And Isaac's just like, Charlie, why? Why don't you want to tell me about it? And he shuts the door. And this is like, we get this little scene in the comic too with Aled and Tal. And I was like, please, 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 please. It's such a good scene.
Yeah.
So Charlie shuts the door and he turns to the closet. And he takes off his shirt and pulls on like a purple shirt. Side note, the dresser that is like in the background that you can see, there's a sock hanging from one of the drawers in the bisexual colors. I was like, bisexual sock!
Oh my God. That's so cool.
So he looks in the mirror for a second and he sighs and he takes it off. And this is the first time we see his scars, I think.
Yeah.
On his arms. And you can tell when he has that purplish shirt on, there's a moment where he like looks at his arm in the mirror and takes it off. I think that the scars are probably visible in that t-shirt. And that's why he took that one off.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he like rubs his arms. And oh my God, Joe Locke. The acting in this bit, and this whole episode really. But this scene is one of the ones that really gets me. It's his acting. It's all like nonverbal, which is what's so amazing about it. But you can see all of the emotions as he's looking in the mirror. Disappointment, anxiety, fear, sadness. And then you see him like shove it down and he grabs the long sleeve green shirt and puts it on. And then he adds the cardigan. And again, all in his face, he's like, this outfit will have to do. It's just like apathetic acceptance that it's not going to get any better for him today. And so this is what's going to work. And here we go.
Yeah. You can tell just with his body language that he's like, I mean, and it's so interesting because you see Joe Locke on like a red carpet and it's so different.
Yeah.
The body language really changes like the way that we view that moment and we view him and his body and like, man, it's heavy stuff. It's so tough.
Yeah. And relatable for a lot of us. So
yeah, 100%.
It's hard to get through these scenes sometimes. And the music like creeps into this like anxious music. And again, I'm like, where is Addie Esker Chase's Emmy for Outstanding Score Composition? Because it's truly so good. And the way that she like ties the score together through the seasons and like updates it. So it's like the same basic composition, but it's a little bit different and a little bit more updated every season is like, it's so good. So then we cut to the kitchen. The party is in progress. There's chaos on the table, snacks, alcohol, gifts. Charlie's like, everyone, my parents are out, but please don't break anything or be sick anywhere. And I'm like, if you're having a sleepover, that should be like baseline. You shouldn't have to tell people that.
No. Also gives you some insight into what has happened at the other sleepovers.
Yep. I mean, think about Halloween.
Yeah. Oh my God. I wish that I had as much of a social life as the characters of Heartstopper. I wish I went to as many themed parties.
Yeah, right? The parties I went to in high school were like 5 of us huddled in a ditch somewhere with like a beer passing it, one beer that
Yeah.
one of us could get.
Yeah. It was always like a 6-pack of Smirnoff and like somebody's iPod
Yes.
in
Yes.
like an iHome that was like crackling. It was not
Yeah.
the vibe.
And there were not decorations.
No, absolutely not. I would be excited if there were like a pool or a car.
Yeah. Or a single balloon. Anything.
Yeah.
His 16 button is a lot smaller than his 15 button. I'm like, he's getting cooler.
Yeah. We're growing up.
And I love the way that after he says a line about like not breaking anything or not being sick, Tao's like, fine. I'm like, was that your plan, Tao? You were coming here to break things and throw up?
I was going to kick the TV in and vomit on it, but I guess not.
Yeah. And Isaac's like, that sounds like a note for Imogen, Charlie. And Imogen's like, how have I gotten this reputation? And I'm like, do you not remember your Barbie outfit and throwing up so much that night?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's look at the material, honey.
Yeah. And it pans over to Elle, and she is chugging. I mean, absolutely chugging this bottle. And Tara's like pouring a bunch of alcohol in a cup. And then Elle has the audacity after chugging that bottle to be like, be careful or we'll have another vomit situation. I can tell you from experience, chugging those little sugary bottled drinks can be just as dangerous as chugging liquor if you are not careful.
So bad. The human organs were not
created for this. Yeah.
By evolution for that kind of an assault. Yeah. No, you have to really take a seat, Elle. Let's simmer down.
Yeah. When I was like 19, I went to a party and it was before I drank beer. So I took friggin', like you said, a 6-pack of Smirnoff Ice over there. And then I played flip cup with it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Girl, I blacked out so fast.
You iced yourself.
Yes.
You iced yourself. That was a mistake. That was a miscalculation. I would take one of those white Smirnoff Ice things and I would, first you suck the first one down because you're like, this is candy. But then you've had a like kind of like a beer. So you're like, I'm going to have another one.
Yeah.
And that's when things start to turn on you.
Yeah. I ended up like in the grass in their yard and like they had to carry me inside and put me on their couch at the end of the night. And then I threw up on their blanket, their like Dolphins blanket, and they were big sports people. And I like woke up the next morning and I wrote an apology letter and put it on their refrigerator. And I left before anybody woke up. And then I didn't go to their house for 3 months.
Oh my God.
They were like, where have you been when I came back? And I was like, embarrassed. That's where I've been.
I feel like I've had so many of those incidents throughout my life. Maybe it's time I need to like. The thing is, like, thank God that nobody ever gave the Heartstopper teens a Four Loko original recipe.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Imogen on a Four Loko? So Tara responds to Elle by saying, shh, I just need a night off from everything. And I'm like, she's been saying that a lot lately.
Yeah.
So that's going to continue to develop. And then we pan over to Tao, Isaac, and Darcy. And now Elle and Tara have joined them. And they are, quote, making a potion that the loser has to drink.
Oh, good.
Which always leads to good places.
Yeah. Jungle juice, I believe they call it.
Darcy crumbles up chips and puts it in there. In the drink, and everybody's protesting and like, Darcy, no, not the chips. And Darcy does not even consider stopping. They are like on a mission. They're like, the chips are going in. And I'm like, you know what? I hope you lose and have to drink it just for the chips alone.
Yeah, totally. Wasting chips like that.
Yeah. Also, I need this bisexual ass pullover that Darcy has on. It's reversible because it's different later. I took pictures.
Oh, wow.
I did some investigation on it. The way it looks in this shot, it's like pink and purple and like gray. And later, it's like blue and purple and gray.
Oh, wow.
And the pink's on the inside.
Not enough stuff is reversible.
Right? I need it.
So bisexual to be reversible like that.
Yes, very fitting. Nick's pouring a drink and Imogen's watching Sahar, and Imogen says, things have been so awkward between me and Sahar since New Year's. Like, we're still friends, I think. I don't know. And then she looks up at him with her giant eyeballs, and he like looks at his cup and he looks at her and he looks at his cup and he looks at her, and then he's like, I think you should probably talk to her about that then. Yeah. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay. I like, you all need your own therapist so you can work through this shit.
Was Jeff not available for the night's
group session?
Book Jeff like people book like a psychic for their party.
Yeah,
people just go in one by one and then come out and share what advice they got.
Then we hear a ruckus and we hear Isaac saying, oh, I am not drinking that. No way. It's actually disgusting. So we know that Isaac has lost whatever game they're playing. No.
Does not deserve.
No. I would also refuse. I'd be like, no, Darcy can drink.
Yeah, yes.
And we like pan across them as everybody's like poking at the drink and trying to get Isaac to drink it. And we go over to Charlie and Sahar. And they're making drinks, and Sahar's like, Charlie, we need a drummer for our Summer Fate slot, and you're literally the only person that we know. And Charlie's like embarrassed already. He's like, I don't know, I don't really like performing in front of people. And she's like, well, just think about it. And she hands him the cup, and they do a little cheers, and they take a sip, and they both recoil in disgust at the taste. And I love her being like, oh, I am so sorry immediately before any other words come out. She's apologizing. He's like, what is in that? And she's like, literally everything.
Oh, God.
I'm like, no.
The birthday special. Ugh.
Yeah. And then we cut to the cake, which I fucking love.
So good.
Feels very familiar. It looks a lot like the Volume 5 cover. And there's even 5 stars on it.
It's so perfect. And also it made me want cake.
It looks really good.
It looks really good.
And I don't believe that a teenager made it.
No, oh my gosh, not at all. If that teenager did make it, they should get on like Master Bakers or whatever TV show. Yeah.
Everyone's singing happy birthday. I love the banner says like best fucking day ever. And then I also really love Tao's little extra Charlie Spring in the happy birthday song.
That is really cute.
I spent some time just kind of like watching all the characters during the scene, and Tori is trying so hard not to smile through it. And I'm like, or is Jenny trying so hard not to smile?
Jenny's trying not to smile.
But it's so in character for Tori to also be like happy that all of these people are here to love Charlie and like celebrate him. But at the same time, like Jenny is like struggling with these fools, trying to keep her stoic face. He blows out the candles. Nick puts his arm around him and he kisses the top of his head. And I was like, okay, contender for favorite kiss, because it's so tender and sweet and I love it. And I opened the question box on Instagram last week and somebody asked me like, what's your favorite kiss from the entire series? And I was like, oh, best I can do is a handful. I can't narrow that down.
They're all of different genres.
Yeah, even still, I had to erase some from, because there was just like, well, here's 12 kisses, you know? Like, how do you pick that? Rude question.
This one's so cute, though, because it's just so familiar, and it's so like, this is domestic. Where they are in their relationship. Yeah, it's so great.
It's the same reason that I love the kiss after they exchange presents on Nick's birthday, and Charlie's like putting the hoodie on and he leans over and gives him just like a little peck and then goes back. I'm like, I love the little domestic kisses so much.
Yeah, they're so cute.
Then Elle asks who made the cake, and Imogen is like, I did. And then there's like just a quick silent beat, and then she's like, guys, do you like it? I made it. And I was like, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Imogen is a Leo. Maybe I'm just projecting because I relate to her too much, but I think she's a Leo. She's like, nobody complimented me. Guys, I made the
cake. Yeah, she made that cake, and she did a great job knowing that it was in service of this moment of saying, I made this goddamn cake.
Uh-huh. And at the same time, I'm like, let Nick Nelson bake. We know he likes to bake, and we've only seen him bake one time in the entire show.
Yeah, truly. Let him cook.
Tori hands Charlie a slice of cake, and he takes it, and then he looks over at Nick, and the whole time he never loses his smile. He is not showing us that he's bothered in any way. And Nick is also smiling, but it's very much a question of, are you okay? And Charlie's like, yeah, I can do it. I want to try. And Nick hugs him, and then he just like stares at the cake for a second too long, and then you could like kind of see him snap out of it, and he starts to like look around other places. And I feel like you can just feel the pride radiating out from him at how far Charlie has come. And he really looks like he's going to cry there for a second while he's like looking around the room. And it just like melts my heart.
Yeah, it's so sweet. And yeah, this is a real marker of time. I mean, in a million different ways between their relationship, the two of them, how Charlie's grown up. It's a nice, it's a nice 16th birthday. And I did not see a ton of those growing up. Usually people were just like passed out.
Yeah. And then the doorbell rings and Tao goes to answer it. And he opens the door and Michael is standing there like full cheesing, ready for the door to open. He says, hello! And Tao's like, who the fuck? And like the whole time that Michael is in the corridor, Tao is looking at him like, I'm the tall friend. We can't have another tall friend. Who is this? He's like, Charlie, do you have another friend that we don't know about? And he comes up and he's like, hi, Michael. Michael says, 16 is when everything starts to make sense. Or when nothing makes sense anymore. Kind of the same feeling either way. Beautiful chaos.
Yep. Nailed it. I mean, I think it does start to make sense but like it takes so long for everything to actually make sense, and it's new for things to make sense, which feels like it doesn't make sense. Yeah. What a messy time in your life.
Yep. And he's like, yeah, thanks. Like you could tell that he's like, I don't know what to say to this guy. And he says, this is for you. And he hands out a little cat figurine like Tori has in her room. And he says, I found him at a charity shop and he just had your energy. So I figured he belonged with you, which I love. And can relate to.
Totally. That's a real gift.
Yes. And he says, also, it made me sad seeing him sitting on a shelf all on his own. So, which I just love the like empathy for this figurine that Michael has. And Tori cuts him off. She comes up and is like, she like stomps up and grabs his arm and drags him up the stairs. And he's like, well, okay. He's like actively fighting against her to continue talking to people.
She's like, stop anthropomorphizing objects in my front hallway. Get upstairs.
Yes. He's like, bye, everyone. Have a fun time. Woo! Bee-boo, bee-boo, boo. It's so good. And Tao, as soon as he's gone, he's like, so who was that? And he's like, that's Michael. He met Tori a few months ago. And Elle has walked up in all of this too. And by the way, also, I love her sweater with like the little hearts on it. Super cute.
So cute.
And she asks, is he Tori's boyfriend? And he's like, she won't confirm whether they're dating or not. And then we get another one of my favorite scenes where Charlie takes the cat and he like holds it up to Tao and he says, meow. And Tao meows back and then Elle meows. This was unscripted. The actors just did it.
Oh, I love that.
And I love the way that the meows are like perfect for each character. Like Charlie's is like playful, like meow, and then Tao's is like authentic, like an authentic cat meow. And then Elle's is like very elegant and playful. And I love it. I probably looked too hard into the meows, but I was still like, I love it so much. We got to the backyard. The tents are all set up. This is interesting. There's like lights in the tents. I'm like, how much money? What do y'all's parents do?
You're setting up all these tents? Like,
yeah. And for one night, they all have to be like, they're intense setups and like you have to clean them up the next morning.
They're like glamping.
Yeah, for one night. Not worth the effort in my opinion, but whatever. We go into Town Elle's tent and Elle says, this is big. And he says, I know. And I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
A tiny tent.
Although they're both very tall. So maybe it is like a large tent.
Maybe.
For both of them.
It's true. And Tao's like filming. And she's like, okay, you better put that down because this needs to be Tao and Elle time. And they start talking about the interview. And he's asking her, have you decided? And she says that she thinks she should do it because it's a really cool opportunity. And he's like, I think so too. You're so talented and the world needs to know. It's going to be a whole chapter of my Elle documentary. And he picks the camera back up. And he starts interviewing her again. Al Argent, how do you feel about your interview on the radio? And she's like, I will pour my drink on you. Which I love. She's like, no pressure tonight. Stop talking about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're just like really building this interview up. And
yeah. My stress about it the whole episode, I'm like, oh, I can feel it on the back of my neck.
Yeah. Then we cut over to Imogen and Sahar's tent, which I noticed is blue and yellow, which I always like to point out.
Yeah, I did notice that too.
It is Akko Taco over here. They are like very intensely setting up their blankets and like not making eye contact. And Imogen finally breaks the silence and she says, things have been really awkward with us, stating the obvious. And Sahar's just like, yeah. And then Imogen says, I've been doing a lot of thinking and reflecting recently. I have no idea who I am, and I don't really know much about anything, actually. But what I do know is that I don't want to keep hurting you. And then she's like, do you hate me? And Sahar's like, no, I don't think I could ever hate you. You helped me realize something about myself that's pretty big. And Imogen looks terrified to be saying this out loud. This is probably the first time she's ever saying it out loud, and she's not even really saying it yet. And she whispers, I guess I could say the same for you.
Oh.
And she looks like she's going to cry. And I'm so proud of her for like reflecting and working to understand. And she's feeling so lost right now, but she's taking these baby steps. And that's just what's got to happen. You just got to take the baby steps. And I'm such an Imogen fan, and Compad is such a bitch, and, you know, it comes to us all.
And I will say I love that this is happening in the tent, because it's like we get so many scenes of them at parties getting some level of progression in their relationship.
Yes.
And this just felt like such a private space to like be able to do that.
Yeah, and they're not like sloshed yet, which is nice that this is like a beginning of the night sort of conversation instead of an end of the night conversation.
Yeah, with a lot more tears.
Yeah. And Sahar's like, but you know, it'd be awful together, right? And Imogen laughs and says, yeah, I know. And she reaches over and she takes Sahar's hands and she says, I like us better as friends. And I'm like, no, I want you to date.
I hate this so much. I always hate that, like, we would be a terrible couple. We're just good friends, but there's obviously tension. Like, I hate that so much. Anathema to me.
I don't think either one of you really truly believes that.
No.
But then we get this flash to baby Imogen and baby Sahar telling secrets in their little PJs.
So cute.
My heart.
So cute.
I do think that, like, as they get older, they're going to have to revisit this relationship. Yes, like, these feelings are not going to go away.
No, that's the thing about suppressing feelings.
Especially they've been going on this long.
Yeah.
Imogen's like, right, so can we get crazy drunk now? And Sahar's like, yeah, but let's start right here. And hands her a bottle of wine. And Imogen's like, wine? And she's like, yeah, it's your drink of choice. And Imogen, my sweet girl, she turns it over to look at the label and she says, is it sustainable? I'm trying to do my bit. And Sahar is like not having it. She like scoffs and she's just drinking Imogen and stands up. I just love it so much. We get this party montage next of like everybody's making drinks and doing cheers, and you know, Tao takes a drink and Darcy's like hugging Charlie, and then Darcy's pouring drinks for Imogen and Sahar. And then like Nick and Charlie are hugging while the others are like tossing balloons at him, and everybody's just like chaotically hanging out and partying. And Nick is over at the drink table and he looks up and he sees Charlie. He's like laughing and like sitting in Tao's lap with Isaac, and they're like hugging and joking around, and he takes a moment to like really appreciate that. And we get this shot in the comics too, and I love it because like in the show we know that Charlie started school back in January, but between like everyone being paired up and having their own couple time, school and rugby, there probably really have not been a ton of group gatherings since New Year's Eve. And even less with alcohol to like really relax him. And even at New Year's Eve, like we see him dancing and stuff, but he was still so fresh to like readjusting.
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
Exactly.
And this is a situation where everybody wants the best for him. There's no unknown elements. Like, it's different. Yeah.
It's at his house in a safe space, you know? And so there's like zero level of holding back in this environment. And so this is probably the first time that Nick has seen him truly like carefree with his friends. Yeah. And so he's like really taking a moment to like soak that in. And then we get the shot of Nick like sitting down and he's taking a drink and Charlie like stumbles over into his lap and they start kissing. And then Good For You starts playing.
Yes.
They did know that this was going to be in this scene. And so they did play it on set for this.
Oh, good. Scene. I love that because usually what's happening is there's just like a...
Yeah.
And everyone's fake dancing to that.
Exactly. Yeah. And the two that I know for sure for this are Clearest Blue for the kiss scene for the Tara Darcy kiss scene in Kiss was playing. They knew it was going to be that song and this one. And so like I just love those moments when you know, like for sure that they were definitely listening to the song. Yeah. They're all dancing like crazy. Tara and Elle are like twerking. And then we get Tori and Michael are like standing by the doors and watching everybody with their glasses and their straws. And Michael's trying so hard not to dance. He does like a little bob, and then he's like, no, standing still. We are adults here compared to these children.
Yeah, it was a real like mom and dad surveying the family chaos moment.
Yes. And they like share a little look and they clink their glasses and take a sip.
So cute.
And then we get some more just like general chaos. Tara's pouring a drink and everyone's dancing and Tal's like filming Tara like chugging at one point. In that moment, I was like, thank God social media was not like it is now when I was at their age because holy hell.
I am so glad that like Facebook was like training wheels when I was in college, and like Twitter and Instagram were like in their like I don't know, chaotic era where like nothing really mattered. Yeah. And if TikTok had existed, it would have been over for me.
Oh my God. It would have been
over for me.
I wouldn't have a career.
Yeah, no, of course not. I would have a career doing something else entirely.
Yeah. So then I see that it's night and they're all sitting around talking, and the opening shot is on Tara and she is already looking anxious as fuck. Yeah. And Imogen is like, have you started thinking about uni options? And Darcy says, oh, gap year for sure. I love staying at my grand's. And I just love that. I love that they're happy. They deserve like some calm happiness for a little while.
I'm so glad that Gran is like delivering on this promise.
Mm-hmm. Sahar says, I think I want to go to a super old university and study history, like dark academia vibes, which is another like direct line from the comics. It's so good. Imogen says, yeah, totally. I'm thinking about doing business or politics. And Sahar looks at her like, fucking what? Like, bitch, we know you belong in like fashion or, not politics or business.
This was me being like, I'm going to be a marine biologist.
I went through a marine biologist phase too. And I remember my mom being like, Ashley, you live in a landlocked state. What are you going to do? And I was like, I can move to Florida.
Oh no.
Imogen's like, Tara, what about you? And she's like, I don't know. And then she's like, okay, Nick. And Nick says, I'll probably try and get in somewhere local so I can stay here. Darcy immediately calls him out. They're like, you want to stay close to Charlie. That's going to be coming up again later.
Yeah. Great intentions, everybody. Let's circle back on this one in a little bit.
And Tara's like, please, guys, can we not talk about uni stuff right now?
Oh.
And Sahar asks Nick, you don't think that you could do long distance? And Nick says, I hadn't really thought about it. Lies!
Liar.
That is all you think about, and I know it.
I couldn't. But the thing is, the hardest truth is that when you go off to college, you shouldn't do long distance. You shouldn't.
I know. Sahar's like, well, she turns to Tara. She's like, well, you're going to Oxford, aren't you? And Imogen's like, yeah, you're doing all that Oxbridge prep stuff. You're so smart. And as they're saying this, the background gets all squiggly. So I've labeled that the panic squiggles.
I liked the way that it looked though.
Yeah, I love it. And she like jumps up and runs away. Darcy like calls after her, but I like that it's Nick that comes in first to check on her because I just love their friendship. And I could see Nick being like, let me go see what's up. So she runs into the house and she walks past Ellen Tao being Ellen Tao, and Charlie's like watching them do something crazy with the camera. And she runs into the living room and she sits down and she's like fidgeting and struggling to get full breaths. And Charlie follows her in there and he's like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, oh, okay, I think you're having a panic attack. My therapist gave me some exercises to help clear my brain whenever I'm having thoughts that I can't control. Let's do some deep breaths together. And he takes her hands and he's like, breathe in for 3 and breathe out. And he leads her through those. And she calms down a little bit. And then he starts using these like grounding techniques to be like, okay, we're at my house. We're chilling. We've had a few drinks, but everything's fine. Everything's good. You've had a little bit more than a few drinks, but I appreciate the sentiment. And it's amazing to see Charlie be able to like so calmly and collected, like use these techniques to help someone else.
Yeah, and, like, it shows you how much he's grown.
Yeah, and it's such a perfect example of, you know, some things you can do if you're having a panic attack or if someone you know is having a panic attack. And again, I just think that this show is just like such a learning opportunity for so many different things. It's wild how much ground they cover.
And as someone that regularly has panic attacks, it's incredibly helpful advice.
Yes. So yeah, Nick has made his way in the middle of all this and is kind of like hanging back at the entrance of the room. And Darcy finally comes running in and they're like, hey, are you okay? And Tara's like, sorry, I'm just stressing about everything right now, but Charlie was helping. I'll be fine. Charlie walks over and Nick was like, that was amazing. Charlie says, I'm so drunk right now. Which I love.
Held it together for the team.
Yes. And we get this like transition shot of all the tents and we go to the kitchen. Nick is like rinsing out he's like rinsing out a paper cup. I'm like, what?
to what end? Also, though, maybe like teens only purchased enough paper cups for everybody to have one.
Maybe, but he like rinses it out and like sits it over to dry.
Oh, odd. I didn't notice he set it to
because
dry.
When he goes to get the cup for Charlie, he goes to the island and gets a different one and rinses it out and then fills it up with water.
All right, Nick.
So I don't know what he's doing.
He's a marine biologist all of a sudden. He's trying to conserve paper cups.
Yeah. So Charlie like comes over, stumbles into him and giggles. And he's like, okay, maybe you've had enough now. And Charlie's like, I really like you. Nick's like, I like you too.
I've heard.
Yeah. And he says, don't ever leave me.
Oh. True heartstopper heads out here suffering.
I know. And he's like, I wasn't planning on it. And then he's like, let's get you some water, okay? And he like sits Charlie on the counter. And he gets the new cup, fills it with water. Charlie's like, come here. And Nick like takes over the water and hands it to him and like slides in between his legs and like slides his hand up on his hips. And I love that Charlie like takes the cup from him and then keeps eye contact with him as he's like sipping. The tension is palpable.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've been thinking about something. Nick says, what's that? And he says, you and me, we could do things. And then little baby Nick says, what kind of things? Oh. And it makes me cackle every time. I'm like, you know what kind of things.
I think you can imagine this thing.
Yeah.
Let's not play coy here at midnight drunky kitchen banky banky.
And Charlie's like, we could have sex. Nick's brain short circuits. And Charlie's like, I think about it all the time. And he like grips Nick's bicep, which brings Nick back online. And he's like, yeah, so do I. And he like moves his hand up to Charlie's waist. And Charlie's like, do you? And this is another Emmy moment for Joe Locke. The shyness with which he delivers the do you line, it gets me every time.
So good.
And Nick's like, I wasn't ready when we were in Paris, but that was a long time ago. And Charlie's like, we could go upstairs. And thank God Nick is Nick. And he's like, Char, you are incredibly drunk.
Yeah.
Correct. This is not the time.
Not only is this not proper consent, also you're not going to enjoy this at all. And let's do this when we can like focus and be good at it. How about that?
Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh man, he's so close to like getting the words out. He says, but when I'm sober, I'm scared that you might just, that you'll look at me and I think I'm going to be sick. And he starts to like get all gaggy. And Nick says, oh shit, let's go to the toilet. Come on. And I love collecting these. I texted my friend Andrea. I was like, I love catching like ADR or editing mistakes because it's like collecting coins in a video game. But when he says, let's go to the toilet, come on, it's like Nick has turned and is rushing Charlie out and his mouth is not moving at all. Like Kit is not talking and they still threw that line in.
We're suddenly back in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. So good. So then we cut to another gag moment the next morning where Tara comes running out of the tent and Darcy's like, wait, I'll hold your hair. I love them.
Post-party teenager hangover. No, that's the worst shit because you don't even know what to honestly be prepared for half the time.
It's true. That's true. Ugh. Although I would take that over a hangover now. Because they last days.
Well, the truth is now I know how to either avoid it or how to like not drink so much that I'm going to kick my own ass for more than 12 hours. But back then I was like, another Smirnoff Ice will fix it. Hair of the dog that iced you.
Yeah, that's fair. So we go into Nick and Charlie's tent and Charlie's like, oh, I feel so ill. And Nick wastes no time. He immediately is like, so do you remember last night?
Hey, bud.
And Charlie's like, well, I remember running around the garden and then we were in the kitchen and he like breaks his neck to look at Nick so fast. And Nick just smirks at him. And he's like, oh my God. And he buries his face in Nick's shoulder. And he's like, I'm so embarrassing. Man, that's alcohol for you.
But you know what? It's your birthday. You get to be as embarrassing as you want. You get to cry if you want to.
Yep. And Nick's like, no. I'm glad you brought it up. And he's like, yeah. And the tension is there for a second, too. And then Tori rips into that tent. And Michael's like, morning, campers. And Tori's like, Mom and Dad are going to be back in a half hour, just so you know.
How are they going to clean this up?
Yeah, 30 minutes, Tori. Come on.
30 minutes. You know you have 30 minutes. 30.
Yeah, good fucking luck. She's like, you need to clear up before going to see that historian you're obsessed with. And Michael's like, I can make egg on toast. You guys look like you need egg on toast. Like, they do. Yeah. Yes. And Michael leaves. Tori's in his jumper. And Charlie does not hesitate to be like, so did he stay over? And she's like, yeah. What? I can have friends over too. And he's like, friends. And all I can hear when he does that is Darcy in season 1 being like, friends or friends. And Nick just like starts chuckling. Tori's like, oh, and like just stomps away. It's like, I don't have to put up with this.
Set yourself up for that one though, I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, you come down in his jumper and you expect your brother not to rib you about it.
You're giving people no details. That's how you build intrigue, okay?
Also, I'm curious because he's in another one. Like, did he pack clothes? Did he know he was going to stay?
Or has he left one before?
Ooh, that's a good question. Ugh, so then we go outside the radio station. Yeah. And Elle's like saying that she's nervous. Also, the captions, man, making me mad this episode because her mom is just captioned as woman here. Rude. Yeah. That is her mother. And Tal's like, where are we going? And he like walks up closer to Elle and he's like, how do you feel? She's like, I'd feel a lot less nervous. You get that camera out of my face. This would drive me nuts. I would be like, seriously, constantly, Tal. And of course, he just doubles down. He's like, but this is history in the making, the famous Elle Argent.
The truth is, it's irreplaceable footage. It's just irritating that you're collecting it.
Yeah, definitely. And I love her dad being like, and if you're at a loss for words, you can just talk about what great parents we are. And everything that you've achieved is thanks to us. And she's like, thanks, Dad, thanks.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. They go inside, and this woman is like, your parents and your boyfriend are going to have to wait outside if that's all right. You'll be great. Katie knows exactly how to keep the conversation going. And we're just through here. And Elle kind of like, you could see how anxious she is.
Yeah, and separating her from her support system, not a great sign.
Yeah. Tao like hugs her and gives her a kiss on the cheek. And he's like, you're going to be great. You're amazing. Cut to, enter Jonathan Bailey.
Oh my God, the king takes his throne.
Yes. They walk in, they sit down.
So dreamy.
Nick's like, are you ready to meet the love of your life? Charlie's like, you are so jealous right now. And Nick looks at him like, yeah, and? And Charlie's like, I'm allowed to have a crush on a celebrity. Nick's like, I can't believe I'm about to be replaced. And then Jonathan Bailey, Jack Maddox walks in, originally named Henry Maddox, but it had to be changed because they can't have the hottie be named after the dog.
No.
And Charlie leans over, he's like, oh my God, he's so hot. Accurate.
Yeah. Sharp eyes, Charlie.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jack Maddox is like, so good to see so many of us united in our love of classical art, of philosophy and literature. And Nick is like giving bombastic side eye over to Charlie.
So much philosophy.
And then we cut back to the radio station. And this is like my least favorite scene. Katie is like giving her instructions, telling her, speak clearly. Her parents are like over at the window with Tao. They wave. Countdown starts. The on-air sign pops on, and she introduces Elle as a Lambert student whose art has skyrocketed on social media. And she's like, tell us about that. And like, what? Tell us about that. What you just told us about it. But okay, I just started to post my art to social media, just wanting to share it with my friends and family. But it just started to get more and more likes. And now I have over 50,000 followers.
Wow.
Go Elle.
Yeah, truly take some sponsorship deals.
Really. Tao is like so proud filming it outside. And she asks Elle if the attention can be overwhelming. And Elle's like, well, yeah, that's a lot of fucking people, dude. Let's not forget that I am 16 years old.
I am a child.
And this is where it really starts to take a turn. Katie's like, and now much of your art explores your identity as a young trans woman. Why is that your focus? And that was the first moment where I was like, ah, shit.
Why is that your focus? Well, I've had 16 years of experience at one thing. So
yeah.
So what else would my focus be? You want me to do something about monster truck driving? Because I haven't done that.
Yeah. And she's like, well, I'm very, very proud to be trans. It's a big part of who I am. And so I like to explore and express that in the art that I create. And she's like, and that's so important right now, isn't it? And there's a big pause. And Tao and Elle both freeze. And you can see like her mom has a moment of like, what is this? And
where are we going?
Yeah. And Katie continues. Trans identities are the hot topic at the moment. Some call it a culture war. Feminists versus trans activists, and so on.
And so on. Feminists versus trans activists. Okay, well, let's just start there. No. Actually,
maybe not with a 16-year-old, though.
Yeah, totally.
And she says, last week we had a feminist speaker on, and Elle, like, looks over at her parents in that moment, like, guys? And she says, they talked to us about the importance of same-sex spaces. I think it's so important we hear all voices and opinions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the debate. And Elle says, trans people aren't a debate. We're human beings.
Drop that mic right there on that podcast.
She should have got up and walked away right then.
Yeah.
Katie's like, well, I mean, our speaker last week believed that the presence of gender-neutral bathrooms will increase the cases of sexual assault against women. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts about that. What are you doing? What are you doing? I want to smack this woman.
I mean, viral moments at what all costs? Like you're an adult. Genuinely, what do you expect? What insight do you expect to gain here? Or are you like it's just exploiting somebody?
Mm-hmm.
It I'm so nauseous thinking about it because the thing is I remember being a teenager and getting into these debates in good faith. Like I remember feeling the responsibility to. And I would like study fucking arguments and I would like be ready to argue with anybody about queer rights and blah blah
Uh-huh.
blah blah blah. And it's not only is it useless, it's like really traumatizing for you. It's so screwed up and nobody should have to debate their existence, let alone someone this young. And this isn't a debate done on in good faith. And I don't know, I think Elle has the right idea here to just like not put up with it, like not give her any quarter to like we're human beings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's no debate. You sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I definitely engaged in a lot of that. And I felt like a responsibility to. And I still do is the problem. Like I'm watching this being like, oh, she's so young, she shouldn't have to do that. Nobody should have to do that. Nobody
Yeah.
should have to answer for their existence. Nobody should have to debate their existence. Nobody should have to do unpaid labor as like a college debate coach to get through like day-to-day life, let alone a
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal moment of like recognition.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of having to talk about this shit. And yeah, it made me really sad to see her go through it, but it's also like nice to see that it's handled so well.
Yeah. Because, and it's like, even if you are going to bring in a teenager to talk about these things, be honest about it. Don't trick them into being there by
Yeah.
making it out like you want to honor them and talk about their achievements. Just to completely flip it on them and not talk about that at all and only talk about
But this is
these.
what happens to us every time. I mean, you can't, Laverne Cox goes on The View to be like, I have a fun new sitcom. And they're like, so about this recent string of murders. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, she's an actress.
Yeah.
What do you expect? Why
Yeah.
does every trans person have to be an activist? Why does
Mm-hmm.
like, and the truth is like, these are the same people, probably this host who would be like, well, I agree with you. I'm an ally. Like, this is
Ah.
allyship behavior. I'm raising
Yeah.
conversations, and it's so sick and it's such a lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ugh. And she like looks back out at Tao and then she says, well, your speaker last week was transphobic then. And at that point, Tao like lowers the camera and is like, okay, this is not gonna get
Yeah,
better.
we got to stop here.
Mm-hmm. And Katie's like, it's a bit of a heavy topic, isn't it? Let's move on to something else. And you hear her mom outside yell like, we were told she was here to discuss art. And then Tao is like, should we go in? Should we stop it? We cut back and we hear like the end of Katie's spiel where she's like, which states that teachers must inform parents about students changing their pronouns. Now, as someone who transitioned very young, I'd love to know how you feel about the new potential law. And Elle is like, I think I need to go. And she gets up and the lady's like, I'm sorry if I offended you.
Oh my God.
I just want to smack her. I want to smack her so
sorry
bad.
if I offended you. Could you be sorry for the thing you did? Could you have not done it? And like, yeah, obviously you offended her. Obviously.
Yeah.
That's what you set out to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you knew what you were doing. And I love her mom and how fierce she is. She's like, she's a teenager. This is not what we agreed. It is inappropriate and it's manipulative. And Elle comes out and she runs over to her dad who holds her and is like, it's okay. Come on. And they all go to leave. And the mom is like, you will be hearing from me. I'm like, burn it down, mom. Burn it down. And Tal, like, he doesn't know what to do. He like hangs back for a second. And then he awkwardly follows. And I feel like the fact that the first question that they asked, like that they eased her in by being like, she's an artist, and then switched it, makes it feel even more manipulative than if they had just
so manipulative.
Not talked about the art at all.
Yeah, why even bring it up if you don't care? And like, it's not as if they're addressing I mean, that's what really gets me too, right? Is it's not even addressing the content of the art. It's just saying like, you're trans. The art you make must be about transness. Now tell me, what should happen with J.K. Rowling attacking a random trans or a random cis Olympian for being trans? How would you solve that? It's like she's 16. What are we?
Yeah.
Ask her about how she paints.
Yeah. Yeah. This entire.
When do we just get to be people? Like exactly. At what point, like all I'm asking is just to be a person. At what point can I just be a person and be left the fuck alone? Is that going to happen in my lifetime or?
It's not that hard. It is not that hard to just let people be people. I don't understand.
It's so, I'm so sick of it. And like, I have thought this before, like, you know, no matter what I make, no matter what I do, no matter anything, and even within my own family, I am like a trans person first. And it gets
Yeah.
brought up every time I get brought up and I'm not in the room. And it's like, to what end? First off, you should feel privileged to know this information about me or about any trans person. I don't owe you anything. This is nothing to do with you. This is my relationship with myself. And yes, there are manners you can have about it. You don't have to. Nobody legally is requiring you to have manners or treat people with respect. But like, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
And especially at 16 years old, it's nobody's business but her and her parents a little bit and her doctor. That's it. It's not up for anybody else's debate. It just makes me so angry. Like, this scene probably makes me the angriest of everything that happens on the show, but obviously because it's personal to me. But I also think it's just like such a clear injustice. And it's such a clear, we very rarely see adults taking advantage of children on the show.
Yeah.
And this is like a really disgusting version of it. And also, to tie into the themes of the episode, a moment of growing up, of being like, we're 16 now and we're not going to be protected from everything all the time. Not that kids always are, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely one of the most disgusting scenes in the entire series.
And of course it's a fucking TERF doing it. Of course it is.
Yep.
Of course it's a TERF doing the most disgusting scene, because they always do, pretending to be feminists. That's the other thing. I wish that it had gone addressed that actual feminism includes trans women, because it includes all women, and that you can call yourself a feminist as cover for your hate project, but like, that's what you're doing. You're running cover.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway.
Okay. So then we go back to Jack Maddox, and he's telling this joke. He's like, you can't trust a Mesopotamian to source your copper. I'm like, what was it? Copper ingot.
And I'll say it, it's true. I've never trusted a Mesopotamian to source my copper ingot.
And Nick is like looking around lost, which I get. This goes over my head. I have no idea what this joke means. This joke and the joke that he tells later, they both remind me of Tara's insect reflection joke in Buffy season 5. Because like, I know it's good. I just don't get it.
I trust that you crafted a phenomenal joke for 4 people.
And he's like, all right, who's got another question? And Charlie like reluctantly raises his hand, all shy, and he gets called on, the boy in the denim jacket. And he's like, I was just wondering if you had any recommendations about queerness in ancient Greece. And Nick is like so happy and proud for him, and like reaches over and takes his hand. And that's a difference from the comics too, because in the comics he's like side-eye, arms crossed, and like gets lower in his seat. He's like, fuck, he's getting attention from him. You know, like, I just wish we had a little bit more of that energy in this episode.
We need jealous Nick. We just need a little jealous Nick.
Yeah.
For flavor.
Yes. And Jack Maddox, I keep wanting to call him Jonathan Bailey. He's like
noted ancient history expert Jonathan Bailey.
Yes. He's like, now that is a wonderful question, because I've just finished reading the most enthralling book while I was in Milan, which is like and we cut to the signing table, and I made this note about the little sign that's on the table, says St. Bartholomew Lecture Hall, but Lecture Hall is upside down. And I was like, why? And then I was looking back at the comics, and in the comics, the sign is also the library or whatever is upside down. So it was clearly like a nod to the comic, but at the same time, I'm still like, but why?
But why?
Yeah, why is it upside down?
Maybe it's a British thing we don't understand.
Maybe. I was like, maybe
Silly
Adam.
Upside Down Signs Day.
Yeah. And Charlie's like, hi, I'm a really big fan. I probably want to do classics at uni, so you're a big inspiration to me. And Jack's like, oh, that's lovely to hear. Classics are my favorite. And he like gets his name, and he's like signing the book for him. And he's like, well, Charlie, study hard and don't ignore your Latin vocabulary. And this is the other joke that, because like, Charlie like gets a little chuckle out of it, and I was like, this is the insect reflection. And then he turns to Nick, and he's like, what can I do for you? And Nick's like, oh, me? No, but nothing. It's but it's really interesting, really, really fun talk. Really, the Mesopotam joke, that was, yeah.
Nick's like, I know all about marine biology.
And he's like, you're very welcome. And then Nick 3 times says, nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Charlie's like ushering him out. And he walks.
Who among us meeting Jonathan Bailey, who's talking intelligently about something we've never heard of, would act any different? I think that was pretty cool under pressure, if you ask me.
Yes. And he like walks directly into that other guy that's at the end of the table. Nick is like, Charlie's like looking at Nick incredulously, like, what the fuck? And Nick is like, yeah, he's really hot. Charlie's like, oh my God.
Now
my
you
favorite.
Get it.
I love disaster bisexual Nick Nelson. So good. I wanted him tripping over the guy on the way out to be in the show so bad. I was like very vocal about it. So I was super glad that we get the like running into the guy. Yeah, it was a nice little cherry on top for me to get that scene. And since we're leaving the book signing, I feel like this is a good time to slide into our book watch. We're back with another one with Kate.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi. Trying to bring the energy.
Okay, so this week, it's a bit different. We don't have a book that's been identified, but we do have a book that Isaac is reading. So it's when him and Tao are sitting on Charlie's bed. Mm-hmm. He's got a book in his lap just before Charlie's birthday party, and he chucks them out the room. There was a lot, when it first came out, there's a lot of people on the internet trying to identify what the books are. People were saying they thought it was Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe, which is a great book. It's a sapphic story about an Asian girl finding her identity. Wonderful, wonderful book that I loved. But you can actually see that it's a graphic novel that Isaac's reading. So I don't believe that is what it is. But I have no idea what it is. I've put it out. No one seems to be coming back. I asked Alice in her most recent Q&A, but I was not picked for a question. So I'm on a quest still to find out what it is he's reading. Reading a graphic novel is something that is completely up Alice's street. I'm sure it's something that she's probably selected to be in there. But she reads so many, and there's so many wonderful ones out there. We unfortunately don't know what this is at this stage. So this is a bit of a plea out there. Any listeners, if you know what it is, let us know so I can add it to my TBR. And we'll see, but unfortunately I don't have anything further for you on what it is Isaac's reading this week.
We'll just have to keep asking Alice every Q&A.
Yes, she'll break eventually.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, and I know in the past a couple of people emailed Toby at the end of season 1 and he sent out a list of the books that he'd read in season 1, so I don't know if people have tried that, but I don't really want to harass him for that kind of information. So if it comes out, it comes out, but if not, there's so many wonderful graphic novels out there. All I can say to people is if they haven't read outside of Heartstopper, they should try some other things. Alice has some fantastic recommendations. So read more graphic novels.
Yeah, this one is a fill in your own.
Yes, I like that. This is your own choice. Read a graphic novel.
Awesome. All right. Well, it was a short one today, but we will be back next week for the next step.
Cool. Thanks, Ashley.
Bye. And then we go to Charlie's house, and they walk into Charlie's room, and Nick is already looking wrecked. He really is into Jack Maddox now. He's walking in we need to do stuff now. And Charlie shuts the door, and he quietly leans against it, and then they rush into each other's arms, and Charlie is standing on his tippy toes while they kiss, which is a parallel to their first kiss in Charlie's room. And the flowers are going around in sparkles and firecrackers, again in the daydream pink, which I love. And they go over to Charlie's bed, and Charlie leans over on Nick, and they start making out. I love the captions here. It says, fireworks, exploding, electricity, fizzing, and crackling. And then when Nick's hand reaches Charlie's lower back, there's a flash of the panic squiggles and the anxiety bubbles dancing at the edge of the screen. I do think it's interesting that it's like a little bit more like Darcy's anxiety. It's got the like purple tint to it, which is like a little different than Charlie's usually looks. And Charlie pulls back and Nick like waits a second and he's like, should we stop? And Charlie's, no. Do you want to stop? And like in that moment when Nick says, should we stop? All the anxiety stuff goes away. So he's like fully back in the moment. And then when they start to kiss again, it immediately comes back in. And Nick like pulls tighter on his jumper. And Charlie's eyes like pop open and then he squeezes them shut, like forcing himself to continue. And the music turns to that super anxious, like sound that it does. Yeah. And then Nick asks, can I take this off? And Charlie sits up and he's like stuttery and he's super rigid and stiff and he sniffles. And Nick is like, okay, we should stop. And Charlie's like, no, wait. And then Jane knocks and walks in immediately. And they fucking scramble apart. And they look absolutely wrecked. And their eyes are like as big as saucers. Like they may as well have just screamed like, we weren't doing anything.
Yeah. Bright red hands. Yeah, totally.
Their hair is everywhere. And Jane's like, open door, please, Charlie. And he's like, yeah. And she says, had a nice time today? And he's like, yeah. She says, okay. And then she does the thing like kind of what Coach Singh did when she caught them kissing in the shed, where she like goes to leave and then she looks at him one more time and then is like, no, I'm gonna go. I say no, I'm gonna go. So good.
Okay.
And then you can see here that Charlie's like worried about what Nick is thinking. And he decides to just spit it out. And I'm proud of him for at least communicating it to Nick.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm nervous about taking my shirt off. I don't look like Jack Maddox or anything. And Nick is like, Charlie. And he glances at his arms and he says, and you know, I've got scars. And Nick is like, yeah, I know. And then Charlie looks kind of like turns in on himself a bit. And Nick is like, you know, I really fancy you. Like, infinitely more than Jack Maddox. He's like, I just got a crush on him today. And Charlie's like, even though he's got a six-pack? And Nick is like, I don't care about that. I like you so much. I love you. I want you. And I think it's important that Charlie hears that last part, because like he hears I love you all the time from Nick, but to hear him actually say I want you is like really important, especially when you're dealing with body anxiety or dysmorphia or just like any kind of body issues. It's nice to hear.
And it's not just any time. It's like right after expressing vulnerability.
Yeah. And Charlie's like, I really did want to carry on. I want to. And Tori comes stomping by. Mom, have you seen my laptop charger? Another scene where I'm just missing Oliver, because Oliver was like running after her in that scene in the comics, which is, and Jane's like, have you checked under the cushions? Nick's like, maybe just not at your house. Charlie's like, yeah. So yeah, that's a really important talk and another like little baby step. I love that we get to see them take all of these little baby steps before they start having sex, because you get to see like all the different steps of consent happening.
Yeah, and they don't rush into anything.
Yeah, and they communicate, which is so important. So then we cut to our final scene, and it is in Jeff's office. I love his little therapy is cool sign.
He's right, it is cool.
And we see the like little pride flag. And Charlie's talking and he says, and I just get into this headspace where all I can think about is how disgusting he'll think I look because I'm skinny and I've got scars. And Jeff says, being skinny and having scars isn't disgusting. And Charlie says, I know, and I don't actually think I look disgusting. And I know that Nick won't either. Like, I love him and he loves me. I just don't understand why I get so anxious about it. And Jeff says, well, we've talked about how you get anxious when you feel like you don't have control. And part of intimacy is trusting someone enough to let go of some control. And that's scary. But as long as you and Nick respect and trust each other and you communicate and listen to each other, then you're safe. And as long as you're using condoms, practicing safe sex. And he's like, you can get free ones here. And he's like, obviously. And he's like, I just wish I was more confident. Okay. So he's like, Jeff is like, Charlie, I think you have a lot of confidence. Aren't you the one who confessed your feelings to Nick first when you didn't even know whether he liked you back? And when I was watching this for the first time, I could feel it. I was like, oh, we're going to get a flashback. And we get the flashback to their first kiss and their little hands touching and the sparks and them kissing. And at this point, I was like, screams and I can't take this show anymore. My heart. I just love it. I love that flashback so much. And Charlie says, I don't feel confident. And Jeff is like, and that's just a challenge that you're going to have to face. And not just with Nick, but in every aspect of your life. Which is fucking true.
This makes me think of the my favorite scene from a very problematic show, Euphoria, where Maddie says, the thing about confidence is nobody knows if it's real.
Yeah, it's so true. But then Jeff says, but I know you have it in you, Charlie. I really do. And Charlie like looks out the window and there's like the birds fluttering and flying away and he smiles. And I'm just so fucking proud of this kid.
Yeah.
I also love Jeff. He's fucking perfect.
You know, what a great therapist. I wish Jeff would help me.
Yeah, I need a Jeff. I have a therapist, but...
I have two. And I need Jeff.
They're not written perfectly the way that Jeff is. Oh, okay. So, do you have a favorite quote?
Yes. Okay. So you would think that my favorite quote would be trans people aren't a debate, we're human beings, right? Because like it is the best quote and it sums everything up and I really believe in it. Mm-hmm. But I think an even truer statement is that you can't trust a Mesopotamian to source your coffers and God. So you know what? I'm gonna say tied.
Hell yeah. I chose trans people aren't a debate, but I also have a runner-up and an honorable mention.
Okay.
So my runner-up was the combo of do you practice your motivational pep talks or do they just come to me with Jeff's? They just come to me in the moment. I'm just a talented person. And then honorable mention to Imogen's, is it sustainable? I'm trying to do my bit. So good.
Yeah, that does deserve an honorable mention.
Yeah. Where did you fall on this scale?
I will give this one a solid 5 because I think it's a great episode. I don't want to break the scale because it's a very serious episode to me. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And yeah, it would be, it doesn't feel tonally right for me to say like it's a 10 million. So I would say it's a solid 5. And I think it delivers in a lot of different ways. And it's such a cohesive episode and it touched on so many different like issues, but it sort of still has sort of a cohesive message throughout the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I think there is some character development for every character we spend any significant amount of time with, which I always think makes for a solid episode.
Definitely. I got a little wild with this one. Because, I didn't break into the millions because of the seriousness and stuff. Like, the L part of it is, like, so shitty, and it makes me so mad. I'm so fucking furious every time I watch those scenes. But then between, like, the candy bar parallel with the slapping, and then Charlie's birthday, and, like, how much love there is, and him helping Tara so smoothly, and the, like, top of the head kiss, and then, like, pride for Imogen and her progress and her self-discovery, and jealous disaster by Nick Nelson. And then the fucking flashback to their first kiss. I am sitting...
And Jonathan Bailey on top is a nice pack of sprinkles. Yeah.
And all the, like, comic goodness that we got in this episode with Jonathan Bailey and everything. I am sitting right around 714,000 on the scale.
Yeah, I can see that. I understand. I see it. I think it's accurate. I think any marine biologist would agree that that's an accurate scientific rating. Again,
it's the L stuff pisses me off beyond measure, but I do think this is one of my favorite episodes outside of that, just for all of the development that we get and just like the shenanigans, the birthday shenanigans. I love a group shenanigan.
Yeah, me too. I think it's an episode that's definitely 100 out of 100 grade. It's what is it? What do they get on their
9?
What is the British test? The
GCSE.
Yeah, the GCSE.
Yeah.
Whatever that pass fail of that is, full pass. It's a great episode.
Yeah, they got 9s across the board for sure. So before we wrap up, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you again?
So if you'd like to find me, I am at Magical Girl Sabrina on Instagram, and I also post on Mastodon, which is my chosen Twitter alternative.
Yes. And you will be back with us for the season 3 wrap up once we get through these. So that's going to be fun.
Can't wait
to have everybody all together. But yeah, that about wraps us up. We will be back in 2 weeks with a mailbag. So please send in all your season 3 thoughts to whyarewecast@gmail.com before we wrap up the season with our last 2 episodes. I cannot believe that we're at the end.
Wow. I mean, it's crazy. This season's such a whirlwind.
Truly is. If you want to follow us online, we are at whyarewecast on all platforms. Until next time, bye.
Bye.